Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. If you're new, my name is Becky, and today we're gonna be making 4 easy weeknight dinners. 2 of the dinners are going to be basically throw everything in a baking dish, throw it in the oven, and let the oven do all the work. 2 of the other recipes we are gonna be making are going to be stovetop dinners, where basically we're gonna throw everything in a pot, cook it in a pot, and the stove is gonna do all the work for us. As we make these recipes today, we will taste test each one of these recipes. When I was looking for recipes for these easy weeknight dinners, I was trying to think of a couple things. I was trying to think of recipes that had minimal dishes, so we can just get in and out of the kitchen and we don't have to do a bunch of dishes. Recipes that were full of flavor and had lots of veggies and just yummy spices and things like that, and things that were a little different that I don't normally make. So these are all new recipes to me. I will link the recipes down in the description box along with the timestamps with the different recipes we are gonna be making. The first recipe we're gonna be making is going to be a roasted gnocchi sausage bake. And I have some bell peppers here. I've already washed up all my produce here, so it's ready to go. And we can just chop and get everything into this baking dish. I have 2 bell peppers here, and you could use whatever colors you want. I happen to have an orange and a yellow one. Most of these recipes would be really good to do summertime because a lot of them call for lots of yummy summertime veggies. And I'm always looking to try new things and change up what we have for dinner, because sometimes I am guilty of getting stuck in a rut. So now that I have my 2 bell peppers chopped, I've got 1 red onion here. And this recipe, originally the one that I'm getting inspired by, is a vegetarian recipe, but Josh does prefer to have a little bit of protein with his dinner. So this one I am gonna add a little protein. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do that, but we are gonna make a vegetarian recipe, fully vegetarian, in a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a compost bowl out so that I don't have to keep going to my garbage a bunch of times. That's gonna save me quite a bit of time right there. Get this out of the way, move this over, and we're gonna throw our vegetables right into this pan. And you could use whatever kind of vegetables you happen to have on hand. If you have a zucchini that you wanna use up, throw that in here. Today, I'm gonna use onions and peppers. I'm gonna throw in 1 pint of cherry tomatoes. You can see why this would be a really good summertime dish. And I'm gonna use cauliflower gnocchi because this is what I had on hand. The recipe calls for potato gnocchi. I get these at Trader Joe's and they have really clean ingredients. The ingredients on these potato gnocchi is cauliflower, cassava flour, potato starch, extra virgin olive oil, and sea salt. I'm gonna put this whole 12-ounce bag in here. I'm gonna drizzle this with some extra virgin olive oil. I have some herb salt that I made from herbs from my garden last year. Basically, you just blend up salt and herbs and let it air dry, and it's a delicious way to add a little bit more flavor. Now, the next thing I'm gonna add is some fresh cracked black pepper, which I am all out of. I have whole peppercorns and I don't own a pepper grinder. So what I like to do to blend up quite a bit of pepper and have the convenience of pre-ground pepper, but more fresh than buying it from pre-ground at the store, because you don't know how long that's been sitting. I just buy my black pepper in bulk. I usually throw about 1/2 pound of black pepper in my blender at a time. And then I let my blender do the work. And then I have the convenience of fresh cracked black pepper, but I don't have to use a pepper mill because I don't own a pepper mill. So worth the effort. We're gonna top this with fresh cracked black pepper. I'm gonna fill my little jar here, and then I'll put the rest of this in a mason jar and fill this jar as needed. I have to do this, I don't know, every 6 weeks or so, maybe a little longer. This is another thing that I love to do and have prepped on hand is I take garlic from my garden, or if I don't have garlic from my garden, I will buy pre-peeled garlic from the store. I will chop this up in the food processor, freeze it in little discs using cookie scoops, and then I have fresh garlic whenever I want it, but I don't have to peel garlic. Now the recipe I'm being inspired by does not call for any sort of protein in this, and I thought what would go really well with this would be some Italian sausage, because when the peppers and onions and tomatoes start to cook down, they're going to create a little bit of sauce, and I think that will go really well with Italian sausage. So I have 1 pound of Italian sausage here, and I'm just going to roll it into little balls and put it on the top here. And this is going to add a lot of really good flavor. We're going to get some protein out of it, but if you wanted to follow the recipe exactly as written, you could pop this into the oven right now at this point. You could even make some homemade meatballs, or if you had meatballs in your freezer, you could throw those on top. I love to keep homemade meatballs in my freezer, but I don't have any right now. And I thought the sausage would give us a lot more flavor than just using ground beef or ground pork. And I think I'm probably going to use about half of this pound. So I'm going to put a half a pound of sausage in here. And I want them about bite size. I don't want them huge. And it already smells good. I do want to get in here and now kind of mix everything together so that the olive oil and that salt and pepper is all mixed in here. Look how good this looks, and we have not even put this into the oven yet. So I have my oven preheated to 425 degrees, and this is gonna cook until everything is roasted and toasty. The pork is cooked fully through, and our gnocchis have a nice color to them. We do have a couple more things we need to put into our baked gnocchi as it cooks. This is the first time I am baking these cauliflower gnocchis. I have baked just store-bought potato gnocchis many times, and they bake up really deliciously, but I've never baked up the cauliflower ones. I've always cooked them on the stove, so I'm excited to see how they come out from being baked in the oven. So this has been cooking for about 15 minutes. My gnocchis are getting slightly cooked. I'm gonna stir it just a little bit to get that garlic incorporated. Trying not to smash my gnocchis. It's starting to get a little saucy and it smells divine. So I'm gonna let that cook for probably another 5 to 10 minutes. At this point, everything is fully cooked and that smells incredible. It looks incredible. I am gonna top it with a little bit of Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna let that go under the broiler for a minute, and then this is done. Alrighty, let's take this out and give this a taste test. My friend, this looks so yummy and smells so yummy, and how easy was that dinner? Literally just wash the peppers and the tomatoes, diced them up, threw them in here. You could put zucchini in here. You could, I'm just trying to get my pot holder out of here. You could put chicken in here if you're not a sausage fan. So yummy, I'm excited for this. I could see myself making something like this all summer long when the fresh produce is coming out of the garden. I wanna make sure I get some peppers, a roasted tomato, a couple pieces of sausage, and of course, I'm excited to see what these gnocchis are like cooked up in this. And you can see that sauce. It just created a beautiful sauce. As I was dishing this up, I was thinking, you know what would be incredibly delicious on this? A ton of fresh basil as it comes out of the oven. I don't have any fresh basil, but if this was summertime and I was cooking this up, I would have fresh basil. So I'm gonna cut this little piece of sausage in half because I wanna get a piece of onion, pepper, tomato, sausage, and gnocchi all together and give it a try. And I kind of want to swoosh it in that sauce a little bit. Wow. Now I'm going to try it without the sausage because this originally did not have sausage in it. Because that sausage is giving this so much delicious flavor. The peppers still have a little bit of crunch to them, which is a nice contrast to the really soft tomato and the soft gnocchi. I'm liking how these cauliflower gnocchis cooked up. They don't have as much toothsome to them. They're much softer than a potato gnocchi that you would get in the pasta aisle. So if you like a little bit more texture, like bite to it, then definitely go with just a traditional potato gnocchi, but I really like the cauliflower gnocchi. The sausage though, I would recommend if you're a sausage eating person. The sausage adds that like really rich savoriness to it, a little bit of saltiness to it that counterbalances the sweet peppers and the sweetness of the onions and kind of that acidity of the tomato. So good. I would totally make this again. And the original recipe did not say to make it in a sided 9x13. It said to do it on a sheet pan. But I kind of like it in this sided 13 pan because it kind of gets a little bit saucy, and that's going to keep the sauce in a little bit more than if you did it on a sheet pan. A lot of that moisture would evaporate, which if that's what you want, then that's what I would do. But I kind of like that the tomatoes and onions created its own little sauce. Yum. We're starting off on a strong foot. So far, this is a winner, but I would recommend if you had fresh parsley or basil ideally, put a ton of that on right when it comes out of the oven. That would be pretty incredible. One dish, one knife, one cutting board, dinner served. What I'm gonna do with this pepper is just get this into a mason jar. Oh, it smells so good. I love fresh cracked black pepper. I just love black pepper in general. Okay. Put the lid on it, and we can use this for all of our other cooking adventures today. This next recipe incorporates one of my new favorite spices, sumac. We're gonna make sumac chicken with potatoes and onions roasted in the oven with lots of fresh garlic. I just melted that because I actually want the garlic to be able to incorporate it so it's not frozen anymore. We've got some other spices here that we're gonna add to it, plus we are going to make a yogurt sauce. This recipe does not call for a yogurt sauce, but I think a yogurt sauce is going to be delicious with this recipe. So that's what we're gonna do. So we need to prep our chicken first. I'm gonna do that in this bowl. I'm gonna use chicken thighs that are boneless, skinless. This recipe calls for bone-in, skin-on chicken, which I think would be delicious. My family does not prefer bone-in, skin-on chicken. They prefer boneless, skinless. So I'm gonna make that substitution so that my family is super excited about eating this dinner. Normally when I use chicken thighs, I will even cut off the excess fat around the chicken thighs because I'm not using skin on bone-in chicken thighs, and we're gonna roast this in the oven for quite some time. I am gonna go ahead and leave that on for flavor, but if you like to cut that off for your family, you go ahead and do that. I'm also cutting this recipe down by quite a bit because we just don't quite need as much as this recipe calls for. Now I'm gonna cut the chicken down because it calls for 3 pounds of chicken. That's more chicken than I need for my family. But one thing I'm not gonna cut down is the amount of spices we're gonna add, because I always think recipes can use a little bit more spice. So even though I'm cutting this chicken down by 1 pound, I'm still gonna season it pretty heavily. I just added olive oil. Now I'm gonna add some of that fresh cracked black pepper that we just made. I just ordered more cumin because I am clearly almost out. I'm gonna use some herb salt because why not add a little bit more flavor? And then the star of the show is sumac. This is a spice that I just started using this last year. It's almost kind of a purpley maroon color, and it has this fresh, citrusy, unique smell and flavor that I have just been falling in love with. If you've never cooked with sumac, I highly recommend you try it because you just might love it. I made a carrot salad with sumac for the first time using sumac, and ever since then I was hooked. So I just added some sumac, and then we're also gonna add an ingredient that is pretty unique, I think, and we're gonna add some allspice. I'm falling in love with using these warmer spices in savory dishes. I'm more accustomed to using things like allspice and cardamom and clove and cinnamon in sweet things, but I'm having fun cooking with them in more savory components. And then lots and lots of garlic. I'm gonna put what would be the equivalent of 2 of those pucks in here. And then the recipe calls for Meyer lemons. My grocery store did not have Meyer lemons, but what they did have, of course, is a good old lemon. So I'm gonna squeeze the juice of half this lemon in here. This is my new favorite lemon juicer. It works so much better than my old one. So it's like this. You put the cut side towards you on the flat end, and then you squeeze, and you can see all that juice that came out. And I think it does a better job than my old lemon juicer, and it sits flat in my drawer, so it takes up less space in the dishwasher and takes up less space in my drawer. I did get one little lemon seed in there I'm gonna fish out. And now I'm gonna stir all this together. Try to get all of the garlic incorporated well and the spices incorporated well. This is gonna take me a minute. Sometimes chicken thighs, they're curled up and it takes a minute to have them kind of open up so you can get them well coated. Wow, this already smells great. I'm gonna set this aside for just a minute while I prep the kind of starch portion of this recipe. So this recipe has basically 2 components, the protein component and the potato component. And I don't feel like getting another dish dirty. So what I'm gonna do is actually put my chicken in here. We're gonna get our potato mixture all mixed in here, and then we're gonna lay it in here with the chicken. I can use this bowl for both the chicken and the potatoes because it's all gonna be baked in the oven at the same time. So now I'm going to set this both over here, and I'm gonna thinly slice my potatoes. I'm not gonna peel them. These are Yukon Golds. You could use a mandolin, but I'm okay if they're not perfect because they're gonna have plenty of time to fully cook in the oven, and I don't feel like getting my mandolin out when I have a knife that I can go ahead and chop these potatoes with this knife. If I wanted my potatoes paper thin, I would go ahead and pull out my mandolin, but I don't need them paper thin here. And if you don't like the peels of Yukon Gold potatoes, go ahead and cut the peels off. But I actually kind of like them, so I'm gonna leave them on. I'm gonna slice up 2 red onions because these are pretty small. If you had one really large red onion, just slice one up. And I'm gonna keep the onion slices relatively large because this is actually not just like a flavor component, but it's gonna be part of the vegetable side for this dinner. So I'm gonna season these separate from our potatoes, but now all of our components are basically done, other than I need to slice up a lemon. For the potatoes, I'm gonna start with olive oil, pepper, and there's a little bit of seasoning from the chicken, and that's totally fine if that's in there. And now I need some salt. And this time I just have some regular salt. Get a couple pinches of that in there. And I'm gonna get in here with my hands and try to get that seasoning even on these potatoes. Now, one thing that really drew me toward this recipe was not just the fact that it was sumac chicken, which was really intriguing to me because I've never had that combination, but it was how this recipe was put together and presented, I thought was really, really beautiful. So what we're gonna do is layer this chicken with, not layer it, but we're going to put the chicken single file layer on the bottom of this baking dish. Now, if you wanted to throw this on a sheet pan, you could certainly do that, but I'm gonna do it the way that the picture showed, where she has her chicken and then she takes potato and kind of tucks the potato in and around the chicken, which I think will be so yummy when this cooks up, because you're gonna get some of that chicken flavor on the potatoes, some of that sumac on the potatoes, and it's just gonna look really pretty and kind of unique. But if you're in a big hurry, you could probably just throw this on a sheet pan and skip this step. But I think this isn't gonna take me very long, and it's gonna be pretty. If I have a little bit of the chicken kind of tucked up around the potato, I think that would be good too. Add more flavor to the potatoes. Now that we have our potatoes in our dish, we're gonna season up our onions. I'm gonna do the same thing, a little bit of olive oil, pepper, and salt. And I'm doing this separate just because I thought it'd be easier to layer this if it was all separate, but you could probably just mix all of it together if you wanted to. Now we're gonna take these seasoned onions and put them in between the potatoes and chicken. This to me is looking pretty enough to serve at a dinner party, and you saw how easy that was. I cannot wait to give this a try. I'm gonna throw a couple sprigs of fresh thyme on here. I have 2, 4, 5. Now we're going to top with a couple things of lemon. And then I'm gonna drizzle it with just a touch more olive oil on those lemons. And just a pinch more salt. That was so easy, especially for how absolutely stunning this is. This is probably gonna bake for a good 40 minutes or so. So you saw, didn't take much time to throw that together. Now it is gonna take some time to cook, but that is where now I can wash up the one dish that I made. Well, I made 3 dishes. I made the cutting board dirty, I made 1 bowl dirty, and I made a knife and the lemon squeezer. If you didn't want to make the lemon squeezer dirty, squeeze that lemon by hand, and you would save yourself a dish. Now, this recipe does not call for a sauce, but for some reason, just like a yogurt, fresh sauce on top of that sounds incredible, so I'm gonna make it. I love a good sauce. Now I'm gonna show you just how easy it is to throw together a simple herb yogurt sauce. You can use whatever kind of herbs you have on hand, whatever kind of herbs you like. You can flavor it however you want. And I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do it today based on what I have on hand. First thing is I have just some Greek yogurt. If I had regular yogurt, I would use regular yogurt. If you don't have yogurt and you have sour cream, you could use sour cream. If you wanted to add a little bit more creaminess to it, you could add some mayo if you like that flavor. But what I'm gonna use is probably about 3/4 of a cup of full fat Greek yogurt that I'm just gonna throw into the bottom of my blender. I happen to have some parsley, so I'm gonna put, maybe not that much because we don't have that much yogurt here. I don't know, maybe 2 tablespoons of parsley. I love cilantro, so I'm gonna put maybe 3 tablespoons of cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, leave that out. I've got 2 green onions here. I'm gonna put, I think just 1 green onion actually. And I'm gonna chop it up just a little bit just to help the blender along, just so that it doesn't have to blend quite so long. I'm gonna use some of our garlic that I have thawed here. You could use dried garlic if that's what you have. good amount of that because we are a garlic loving family. And then I want to mimic some of the same flavors that I have in this dish. So I'm going to put a pinch of salt, pinch of sumac, because this is sumac chicken, pepper, and I think since I still have it out, I'm going to put a pinch of cumin, just like that. So this is going to be a green, delicious, creamy sauce. You could use a food processor if you have that. I'm going to turn this down. I didn't put that much in here, so it's going to take a second to get this all blended together. I'm just going to push it down a little bit so that my blender blade can catch all that goodness. If you want a really smooth sauce, make this really smooth. If you prefer a little more texture to it, don't blend it up quite so much. I did have to put about maybe a quarter cup more yogurt in it because it wasn't catching my blade, and I just used some regular yogurt for that. Yum. I think it needs something. I think what I'm gonna add is a little bit more sumac because I want some brightness, but I don't want to add any citrus to this because there is so much lemon juice and the lemons on our chicken. I don't really want to make this any more sour because I want it to kind of balance out that, but it needs a little bit more brightness. So I think just another pinch of sumac in there, blend that up, and then we're going to give that a try. Okay, let's try that now. I think it needs a little more salt too. Did I add salt earlier? No, I can't remember. It's always okay to taste and adjust the seasonings as you cook. Everyone has different preferences for how seasoned they like stuff. And so just taste, 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 adjust, adjust, adjust as needed. All right, that's what I needed. Oh my goodness. Go make yourself some yogurt sauce. I can't really keep this in my fridge very long because I go through it so quickly, because I like this type of sauce on almost any sort of dish. I would be happy to eat this kind of sauce on any grilled meat, steak, tacos, burrito bowls. Anything would be good with this sauce on it, except maybe a cardboard box. I'm gonna get this into here. Look at the color of that sauce. This I could eat with a spoon. I mean, probably I would not eat this with a spoon, but I'm just telling you, this type of sauce is so delicious and super easy. And if I was thinking, I probably should have made enough to fill this in a whole entire container because I know we would easily go through this. So this is gonna be popped in the fridge, and now we just wait for this chicken to be done. You can see how beautiful it is. It's got quite a bit of time before it's gonna be done, but this is going to be delicious, I think. This is starting to smell incredible. I think we should take its temperature of the chicken and check to see if the potatoes are done. Oh yeah, chicken's done. You can see I'm at 200 degrees. This is why I like to use chicken thighs when I can, because they are so much more forgiving when it comes to overcooking versus chicken breast. And our potatoes are super tender. I'm gonna get some potato down first. These potatoes are so tender, and they've been cooking in all that flavor from the chicken and the onions. I'm gonna get some of that onion in here too. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. This is unlike anything I've ever really made before. And of course, we've got to top this with our yogurt sauce. It might not need this yogurt sauce, but I love a good sauce. So easy. Let's give this a try. This dish, I think, would be pretty enough to serve if you had guests coming over. I will have to think that through because that was so easy to put together. I'm gonna try it, I think, without the yogurt sauce first, just to see what it's like on its own. So I wanna make sure I get a little bit of our onion, some of our chicken, and of course, a piece of potato. If I can get it on my fork, it's all so tender, it's hard to stay on my fork. Friend, delicious. Onions, potatoes, chicken on its own, delicious. Now, you will notice that I seasoned it really well with salt. In the notes, the recipe said, do not be afraid of salt with this one, and it is yummy. Wow, I could not believe the level of flavor coming through. It's so rich and savory, and you saw how simple the ingredients are that we put in there. I'm now gonna taste that with a little bit of our yogurt sauce. Potatoes are not my actual favorite vegetable or starch. When it comes to starchy things, I prefer pasta, rice over potatoes. I like potatoes. I even prefer sweet potatoes over regular potatoes, but I'm always looking for ways to cook with potatoes because I actually grow a lot of potatoes in my garden. And this is amazing. I think cooking the potatoes with the chicken just adds such flavor. I love potatoes, I should say. When I roast them, I'll put a bunch of potatoes on the bottom of the slow cooker, and then I'll put a chuck roast over the top, and those potatoes that cook with all of the drippings from the roast. So good. This is kind of that same thing, but with chicken. Yum. Now I'm gonna try it with our yogurt sauce. Oh my goodness. It was good before. Now it's over the top. The only thing I would do different with this is I would probably do one more red onion because these red onions are so sweet and delicious. This is so good. This next recipe is going to be done quicker than I can get this pot of rice done. So this technically is a 2-pot dinner in that I am cooking rice in the Instant Pot, but the rest of everything will come together in one pot on the stove. So I have my rice in there, I'm gonna put on, and by the time this comes to pressure, releases from pressure, dinner will be done. This next recipe is called firecracker chicken stir fry, and this is what actually inspired this whole cooking day. The first thing we're gonna start with is browning our ground chicken, because while this is cooking, we can go ahead and make up our veggies for this. I'll start with a little bit of olive oil. The recipe actually calls for ground chicken. I have ground turkey here because my grocery store did not have ground chicken this morning. So I'm gonna get 1 pound of ground turkey in my pot. And I'm gonna break that up just a little bit before we go and start chopping up our veggies. This is a very lean turkey. That's why I added a good bit of olive oil before we got started. I just washed up some more green onions. I have a pepper here that I've already de-seeded, and I have a zucchini. I am gonna get this stuff chopped up. I think I'm only gonna use half of this zucchini because it's relatively large. We should be able to get all of our veggie prep done in the time it takes us to cook up that chicken. Now we're supposed to have our green onions separated, the whites and the greens, because we're gonna cook the white part and we're gonna leave the greens fresh. This knife needs to be sharpened. I already put my other knives that I've used today in the dishwasher. And I sharpened those ones before we had gotten started. There's our onions. Now I'm gonna dice up this pepper relatively small. Really small dice. So here you can kind of see the size I'm going for, pretty small. And I'm gonna dice up this whole pepper. I can smell my ground chicken, so I think it needs a little bit of a stir. So at this point we have our onions and our bell peppers chopped. One of you all told me that I should wait and use my meat chopper once this is cooked and then it doesn't stick inside the prongs, and I think that's brilliant. I just forgot to do that today. So I'm just gonna grab a wooden utensil, break this up a little bit more. We're starting to get some really beautiful color on there. This is the type of dish that I would normally substitute ground beef for because I have a freezer full of ground beef. I buy my ground beef from a local farmer. And I really just wanted to try this with ground chicken or turkey because I don't cook with either of those that often. And this was really different. I normally make egg roll in a bowl on and Korean beef on a regular basis because those are easy. So this was kind of reminded me of those two recipes that are definitely in my normal routine when I need something quick and easy. And so I thought this would be a kind of a fun change to those two recipes that I make all the time. I'm pretty sure this is the first zucchini I have bought well, I know it's the first zucchini I bought this year. I normally don't buy zucchini. I try to wait until the zucchinis come in from the garden, and I enjoy my fill on those. But I was definitely thinking that zucchini in this sounded good, so I picked up a zucchini. And I'm gonna dice this about the same as I dice the peppers. And you know what? I don't know what I'm gonna do with that other half of that zucchini. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this up too. Now we've got some nice color on this. It's fully cooked through. So I'm gonna just make a little well in the center of this pan. We've got a lot of browning on the bottom of the pan, which is delicious and beautiful. And what I'm gonna do is add some sesame oil. And we're gonna saute up our veggies in that sesame oil. Oh, it already smells so good. So peppers, zucchini going in, our white part of our green onions going in. And I need to season this with salt and pepper because I have not seasoned it with salt or pepper yet. Pepper. Salt, not too much salt because we are going to be adding some soy sauce to this. Just these veggies and this turkey and the sesame oil is starting to smell incredible. And the moisture from the veggies is allowing me to deglaze the bottom of this pan a little bit. I want all of that brown goodness into our firecracker chicken. See all that browning? We want that in our dish. The veggies aren't totally tender yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and add the sauce. I want the veggies to have some texture to them. I'm gonna add a little rice vinegar, coconut aminos. This is gonna add a little sweetness. If you prefer soy sauce, add that instead. I'm gonna add the last 3 of my little frozen ginger pucks. I'm gonna add a good spoonful of fresh garlic and just a little bit of chili paste because my family's gonna be eating this and I don't want it to be too hot. I can add more chili paste to my own dish. I'm gonna saute up that onion, try to get that garlic and ginger cooked up. And this is done. I just need this to cook through and get those veggies the tenderness I want, get that ginger and garlic cooked, make sure the whole bottom of the pot's deglazed, and now we're just basically waiting for our rice to cook. The hardest part of this dish was chopping up the vegetables, and that was still pretty easy. I'm gonna give this a try without the rice. The rice still has 2 minutes before it can actually even start depressurizing. So we definitely got the main part of our dinner done before our rice was done. It might need some salt or pepper, but I do wanna get a piece of zucchini and a piece of our ground turkey and some peppers. The Instant Pot just started beeping, so it just finished its cook. Wow, I really like that. The one thing about ground turkey is it has a much more mild flavor than beef. And so what that is allowing is for the zucchini flavor to really come through and the pepper flavor to come through, the ginger and the garlic. I'm really tasting that. And the ground turkey is more kind of like a background flavor versus I feel like with ground beef, it's a little bit more upfront. And I love the flavor of peppers and zucchini. So this is fantastic. And the texture of that, I like how this recipe called to cut that zucchini and pepper really fine into those little tiny chunks. Normally when I cut peppers and zucchini, I leave them much bigger, and I really like the idea of chopping them up nice and small. So it's basically the same texture as the ground meat, whether you use chicken, turkey, pork, beef. Pork would be good with this too. I don't think it needs any salt or pepper or any more coconut aminos. You can see how just that little bit of moisture from the veggies and our sauces, we were able to deglaze the bottom of the pan. And then as soon as our rice is done, we can dish this up. How my family will eat this, I probably would eat this over cauliflower rice or served over green beans. But how my family is gonna eat this is over rice, so this is how I'm gonna taste this. If Josh was here, I would have him try all these recipes for you as well, but he is gone today. My family is out doing fun things, so I have the house to myself. That's why we can do all this cooking together. So I'm gonna give this a try with rice, how my family will enjoy it. Wow, simple, delicious, flavorful, easy, crowd pleaser. I think anyone would really enjoy this. I would absolutely make this again. So good, simple. I think next time, just because I have it, I would make it with ground beef. We love ground beef around here, so, ooh, there's definitely a little bit of heat coming through at the back end, which balances the coconut aminos. Coconut aminos, if you've never cooked with them, is pretty sweet compared to soy sauce. Soy sauce is obviously pretty salty. Coconut aminos is definitely on the sweet side. So that balances that chili paste really well. I hope that's not too spicy for my family. I don't think it will be, but in the future, I think I would use ground beef, even though I like the flavor of this. I do really like, the thing that I like the most about this recipe is the size of the peppers and the size of the zucchini. I like that really small texture. That's something I've never done before. And I would absolutely do a small dice on peppers and zucchini, sauteed with some ground beef, served over rice with some different yummy sauces on the top. Winner. This right here is the recipe we are about to make. It's a vegetarian white skillet lasagna. I picked this recipe for a few reasons. It's completely different than a traditional red sauce lasagna. It's a skillet dinner. We're gonna make it in this pan, and there's no layering, and there's lots of spring veggies in it. So I just thought this would be a really fun and interesting recipe to try. Plus there's pesto in it. So it's kind of a green skillet lasagna that we did throw in the broiler and broiled it up so that it would have a nice crusty, cheesy top. This is gonna come together really quickly. The first thing, and basically the only veggie prep we have to do, is chop up this broccoli really fine and dice up this onion really fine. This onion is huge, so I actually think I'm only gonna chop up half of it. I'm gonna chop up this broccoli really small. I've never made anything like this before, and it's gonna be fun to see how it goes. And this is a vegetarian dish. If you wanted to add chicken, I think chicken would be a good protein to add to this, but we're gonna keep this one vegetarian. We have a beautiful color on our onions, so I'm gonna go ahead and add our broccoli. And then this recipe calls for adding the peas right now. I'm gonna add the peas closer to when it's done because I don't like my peas to get overcooked. And we're just gonna cook this for a minute or so. Next, we're gonna add some of our minced garlic. Now that our broccoli is a little bit more tender. Now this is where this recipe gets really interesting. We are gonna take our noodles. We're gonna take 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we're actually gonna break these into our pot. Now my grocery store this morning did not have any no-boil noodles. These are just regular lasagna noodles, and I think it should work just fine. I'm gonna kind of break these into bite-sized pieces. Ooh, they're a lot easier to break when they get a little bit warm. Now we're gonna add half and half and 1 cup of chicken broth. Now the recipe calls for veggie broth, but I don't have any, so I'm gonna add chicken broth. But if you wanted to keep this true vegetarian, definitely add chicken broth. And this is what's gonna cook our noodles right here. So we're gonna cook our noodles in with our broth and all of our veggies, minus the peas. I'm gonna put the peas in just a minute. After this cooks for about 8 minutes. And I'm just gonna let this come to a simmer. And once this comes to a simmer, I'm gonna time it for about 8 minutes. And then we'll check the doneness of our noodles. While our onions were cooking, I did go ahead and I measured out ricotta, in quotes, that's not ricotta. I forgot to ask Josh to get ricotta for me this morning, so I had some cottage cheese in my refrigerator, so I actually blended it up so it would be the texture of ricotta. So I'm gonna substitute that, and that's gonna be perfect. That's give or take about 1 cup. I shredded up mozzarella, and then we need some pesto for our lasagna as well. So you can see almost all that liquid has cooked out. I was doing a few dishes while this was simmering away. So now what I'm gonna do is add my peas, because I don't like overcooked frozen peas. So I'm gonna add about 1 cup of those. I'm gonna add my ricotta substitute, which is a good way to use that up since I had that in my fridge. That looks beautiful. And then I have some pesto here. I'm gonna get a little bit of that in there. So this is gonna be a beautiful green color. That's probably good there. I'm gonna add some Parmesan cheese. And now I'm gonna get all of that mixed in with our noodles. Now, as I was watching this and doing some dishes while this was simmering away on the stove, a couple of the noodles kind of stuck together. So I did keep track of that and just make sure that they weren't sticking together too much so that all the pasta noodles cooked evenly. Oh my goodness, this looks fantastic. Smells even better. Now, this is definitely something I would eat. I'm excited for Josh to try this and see if he likes it. This was definitely a pick that I wanted to try for sure. I'm gonna clean up the edges just a little bit now that I have all that mixed in. I'm gonna top this with our mozzarella, and I'm gonna pop this under the broiler, and I'm gonna let this get roasty and toasty, because who doesn't love a bubbly cheese layer on the top of their pasta? I sure do. Oh my goodness. Yummy, yummy. That looks so good. This is one of the recipes that I was the most excited to try. I've never made anything like this before. Look at that cheese pull. Nice. I've never put peas in a lasagna. I mean, I put peas in pasta before, but nothing like this before. Now that I've tried this white skillet lasagna, I kind of want to try making just a traditional lasagna on the stovetop like that. It's a lot less work than having to layer it. It's kind of, I guess, the same idea as the sheet pan lasagna I did, but I'm pretty sure I boiled those noodles separately versus there's something really nice and convenient about cooking the noodles in with the sauce and not having to get another pot out to boil the noodles. That was another reason why I picked this recipe, is it was a one-pot dinner. I did have to use a few more measuring spoons, I guess, for this recipe, but I still just used a cutting board, a knife, some measuring cups, and then this skillet. But I didn't have to get a whole pot of water on to boil, which is a time saver, I think. I like the peas in it, but what I really like in this is the broccoli. That is yummy. I love cheese and broccoli together. Look at the cheese, it's just, that's the one nice thing about mozzarella, is that it's so stringy. And these noodles cooked up just fine. Even though these were not specifically no-boil noodles, they cooked up just fine. Wow, that is good. This is just the peas and the broccoli, no noodles. I kind of want to take a bite of just the veggies. Wow. I could make this up again, leave the pasta out, add twice as much broccoli, twice as many peas, and have it just like that, like a cheesy, pesto-y broccoli bake. It would be delicious just that way. That is a winner. It's got me thinking though, I know that this is not gonna be Josh's favorite. I'm gonna rate mine from favorite, and my favorite was the potato sumac chicken. So good, which shocks me because, like I said, potato generally does not rank up in the top of my favorite starch, but something with the potatoes being cooked with the chicken, the sumac, the allspice, the sweet onions, and then that yogurt sauce really brought it over the top. Probably my next favorite, I'm looking at him over there. Probably the first dish we made, the gnocchi veggie bake with the sausage. That Italian sausage that Josh picked up this morning for me was incredible. The flavor was really, really good. And then the pepper flavor really came through on that one. And I liked how the tomatoes kind of made this cheesy sauce with the Parmesan cheese when it melted when I put it on the top. And then I think it was the firecracker chicken is gonna be my next favorite. And then this one, which is kind of surprising to me. I loved the easiness and convenience of the firecracker chicken. That's probably, that type of recipe is one that I would just make now that I've kind of got that idea down. I would just make that on a night when I really don't feel like cooking and I have a lot of veggies coming in from the garden. That could definitely be an easy go-to. And this was delicious as well. I would make something like this again. The reason why I probably would rank this at my least favorite is that the other three were a lot lighter, and this is obviously a little bit heavier, even with the spring veggies. Because it has cheese and the half and half, it's a little bit richer. And we're in spring now. We're officially in spring. And so I'm just kind of looking for things that are a little bit more on the lighter side. But this, I think, going into the fall or winter would be fantastic. And the thing I like about this recipe is I like the technique. So I want to try this technique. Yes? One of my dogs just scared himself, I think. He wasn't barking at anybody but himself. I like the idea of this technique with using a bolognese sauce and then maybe putting dollops of ricotta on it and then just finishing it in the broiler, but not having to boil the noodles separate and not having to layer it. I love that idea. So what I'm gonna do, because Josh is not here right now, I will have him try all of these, obviously. And this is meal prep. I'm not gonna have to cook for quite some time, which is great because I'm gonna be working in the garden for the next few days. Josh just picked up for me a huge truckload of compost. And over the next few days, I'm hoping he will have time to go pick up more compost for me. So I'm glad I'm not gonna have to spend any time in the kitchen. But what I will have him do is he's obviously gonna try all these. And in the comments, I will pin a comment with his favorites and a few notes that he has regarding these different recipes and which ones he would like me to make again and which ones he probably would prefer that I try something a little different next time. So friend, if you want to try any of these recipes, they will be linked down in the description box, and then the timestamps, I'll go ahead and put the timestamps next to the recipe as well. I want to thank you for being here. If you need more dinner inspiration, let me pop 2 more videos here where we go through different dinner recipe ideas for you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.